Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to What the Hell Happened this week. We had a little hiatus last week because Dustin was on a vacation. We had fall break with all the school and kids and stuff, but we're back. And as always, lots to talk about. Um, I'll go ahead.
Lots of what the hell happened these last 2 weeks. We'll try to fit everything in.
We'll try. We try not to go too long, but I'll start by just sharing for my subscribers. I just sent out a new article. Um, it's a different topic. It's about, well, I would say it's a adjacent topic because it's a personal story, a personal journey with my mental health and anxiety. And it's more about a story about my denial of the anxiety I had. And
Mm,
I shared 10 things, 10 anxiety hacks. Because I feel like it is, of course, adjacent because most people who like to watch this show, watch us go live, read our articles, that there's a cost to being politically in tune with things. There's very much a
right.
price tag for that. So,
Yeah.
this is about it's about taking care of yourself, and just some simple things to do, especially from now to the end of the year. So go check
Give
that
us a
out.
little
And I
preview. Like
okay, well,
what, because I haven't read it yet. I thought I saw
okay,
some
yeah, I
preview.
like just clicked in. Well, I've been going to therapy since spring of last year. And I had, like, tested it out once or twice before, but it just never clicked or stuck, but so, of course, like, going to therapy, but more than that, like, finding your therapist, like, the one that really clicks with you. I just found someone who is amazing, and, once I found her and she was really able to help me put a name to a lot of things. I always knew we know, like, how we feel and, like, the disruption or cloudiness or confusion or anger around a certain topic, but she really made help me figure out that like putting a name to things and like I just identifying things really helps the healing process and the growth process because it just helps you to process it more. And then the biggest one for me, and I'm not even like ashamed to say it, but I finally got on some antidepressants. I was convincing myself because I have many friends and family members who've been on it, and I was on it a little bit. I got on it when my girls were born because my doctor just like as a precaution, but it was so messed up in 2020 when I had the girls, like, and I didn't really feel a difference. So I guess
Mm,
that also contributed to my thoughts on like, oh, well, it didn't really help, but I got on a different kind this time, and it's been absolutely life-changing for me. I didn't realize how much I was missing out on, like, the simple joys in life. I'm like a different person. I can't explain it. I do try to explain it in the article, but then it also was like this anchor. So like the other things I was trying to do for anxiety were felt more one off. Like I was trying to do the things, but then I would get distracted or go down into a hole. But then getting on the medicine really made the impact of the other things I was doing more effective too.
mm,
That makes sense.
mm-hmm.
So those are just the first two. There's a lot about like being creative and your social community. There's some fun things there. It's just kind of a reminder that we really do need to take care of ourselves first. If we're
Mm,
going to be fighting what's here, if we're fighting fascism, um, people getting kidnapped on the streets, we're fighting for our rights. We have to take care of ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we are choosing to put our head in the sand. It doesn't mean that we're numbing ourselves. It just means that we're nourishing ourselves, our physical and mental strength, so that we can make this through the long haul and keep
mm.
fighting. So
Yeah, I'm excited
hopefully,
to read it.
hopefully it gives you some different perspectives and some ideas on things you can do to take care of yourself a little more.
Yeah, just a couple. I would love to read it. Couple of things that I've done recently is like get off Twitter. That was a big deal for me because I had a
Congratulations.
because I had a
I
Twitter
mean, I'm
addiction.
shocked. I'm shocked to hear that.
I moved to Threads, so it's not like I've
Okay.
yeah, but which
That's
is
a healthy
better.
decision. Very
It is
healthy
way
decision.
better because Twitter, like the algorithm, just feeds you just like the craziest stuff all the time. So it's like high intensity,
It's
you know what I mean?
so toxic.
Yeah, and I made it. I took it off my phone. Like I still have it on my
Mm,
desktop if I need to get on there
sure,
because
sure.
have I still
But
post on there
removing
and
that app from your phone is a big
game
deal.
changer. And
Yeah.
it kind of threads I kind of get to start over again. Like I'm not,
Mm,
if there's a MAGA account, I'm like, bye or a bot or what,
mm-hmm.
there's always trolls. I'm like, you got 20 followers and don't even have a profile picture and don't even have your name on there, like bot, bye,
Next.
you know. So, so that has helped a lot. Um, and I another story that helps me like sleep at night. I tell people this. I've recently got into like reading the Game of Thrones books, which I've never really read fiction at night. I've always done nonfiction and just realized that's just not good for my brain. I'm like, I do nonfiction all day. Um,
Your like high achiever, like wanting to be
yeah, like
productive,
learn,
anxiety.
gotta get this
Yeah.
in,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
but I've recognized that like the Game of Thrones novels, of course, fantasy fiction, it takes you out of this world and into
yeah.
and envelops you in a story, and the writing is so good. And I'll read, 30 minutes and then I fall immediately to sleep. And if I miss a Game of Thrones like reading or fantasy fiction reading, like I end up staying up, thinking for 30,
Mm.
45 minutes, you know what I mean? Especially because everything
Interesting.
going on. So, that has helped a lot. But
Is
set
it giving you strategy tips?
well, what? Oh, the reason why it also helps dealing with the political craziness because in Game of Thrones there's a lot of political craziness, and
That's all
I
it is.
think what I've noticed is there's so much tragedy in there. Like it helps keep perspective, like in times of medieval times or even just 100 years ago there most families had to live with tragedy constantly and people dying and there were so many bad things that happened 100 years ago and later it makes you feel like okay like tragedy is kind of the norm for for hundreds of years of humans
For human existence.
thousands
Yeah.
yeah is so normal and like we're kind of lucky right now so it helps keep a little perspective like things could be much worse and so I think about that a lot when I'm reading the tragedy, except for last night. And you'll like this, Danielle, because
Did you
I
hit the
kept,
red wedding?
yes, I hit the red wedding because the whole book is like leading into it. I'm like, which chapter is the red wedding? I haven't, I'm like getting there. It's taking so long. And then I saw like it was like the next chapter because it was speeding up to it. I was like, I got to read it. So I read it. And basically, like, it, the chapter ended with like the feeling of the cold, Lady Caitlin's feeling of the cold knife. And that was the end of the chapter, whenever they slit her throat, which is like the ultimate tragedy. And, I went to sleep and I ended up having like two or three nightmares last night.
Yeah.
So, because of the red wedding,
I'll
so
never,
most
I'll,
of the time fantasy fiction is good until it's like
right.
so shocking and you go
Yeah.
right to bed and then, you might have a nightmare. But other
I'll
than that,
never
I have good
forget.
dreams.
I have a vivid memory because, way back in the Dustin were early adopters of Game of Thrones HBO series. So this was like probably like 2011 or 12. And I think it was season 3, the Red Wedding was, and you had watched it before me, and you sent me a text, and you just said, "Buckle up," and I was like, "Oh shit!" And we had a chat after I watched it.
Yeah, the
Historical moment.
writing of George Martin's is just so much better and descriptive, and so the Red Wedding was really explicit, like slow
I can't
motion for a
imagine
whole
like
chapter. It was so
right
amazing.
the book versus
It
the
was so
episode.
intense. so intense. And that's probably why I had the nightmares.
But,
Speaking of nightmares,
oh, yeah, great segue.
yeah,
That's, our everyday reality.
yeah,
Nice segue.
exactly. Yeah, I thought we would talk a little bit about like what's happening in markets right now. We talk about politics a lot, and I always say politics and economics are completely linked in every way. Throughout, most for the last number of decades, it's been bullshit, in my opinion, that people have tried to separate the two, but they're completely
Mhm,
linked. And more and more warnings about a possible recession coming. And I know it's a little crazy too, because people say like, all right, so why is everybody predicting a recession or bad things happening, but markets are making new highs? And that got me because there's a reason why. And because I've been doing this for 21 years now. Yeah, 21 years. So I've been through the financial crisis. I've been through multiple recessions and crises with the COVID and everything. And I see how markets react and stuff. And I always told clients, like, ninth innings in the economy, before we have a recession, it's by its nature puts you in a constant conundrum, and that's kind of what a bubble is. So it's kind of a psychological problem that humans have, which leads to a bubble, which leads to the drop, because you keep seeing the gains, um, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Why, you know when there's a mature economy after it's been going for so long, why you have big gains, but then when things are changing, and a lot of red flags are happening, you're still seeing those gains. And it's and I've told people this every time, like it's kind of, I call it the ninth inning phenomenon, whereas
mhm,
the ninth inning of the economy, you have like the most runs happen, you have the biggest gains and stuff, and that's kind of when the bubble happens. So people have so much fear of missing out because, again, the
mhm,
economy is about fear and greed. Okay, on the
mhm,
downside, fear is your worst enemy. And on the upside, where we're at right now, greed is your worst enemy. So people are constantly saying, "Well, I can't get out, can't get out," as so because the market keeps going higher, so people stay in, and the bubble gets bigger and bigger until something triggers it, and then the reverse happens, and then a big fall can happen. And then, yes, in the recessions, sometimes they go way too deep, more than they should, because there's so much fear, and that's kind of what's happening right now. So there's more red flags. Um, One of them is private credit markets is kind of a new thing. And to me, it's kind of a big deal because, you know, you already have Trump doing tariffs, which are hurting the economy, hurting the working class. We have the mass deportations and extremists, ICE, scaring people, and a lot of the underpinnings of our economy is immigration. You have all these things happening, but once there's like sparks of the fire in credit markets, that really kind of triggered me a little bit because I went through the financial crisis and I went through it in slow motion every single day. And uh, I remember the first time people started talking about subprime loans, and all the talk was, well, yeah, it's happening. People, that shouldn't have gotten loans or have gotten them, but it's
the
only a few amount of loans.
normalizing
It's
of it,
it's only
yeah.
it's only a small percentage,
Mhm,
and all the normalizing starts happening. I'm already seeing that with the private credit markets, and it makes a lot of sense. And what private credit markets are is it's not the bank. Most banks loan out stuff, but they hold deposits, for their risk return ratio. They need enough deposits before they can loan out. Private credit is more of a late term uh, uh, economic thing where there's so much money going around. They say, well, hey, well, let's skip the banks. There's so many. Let's get an investment firm to just make
mm,
loans to companies, and we can get investors to give us money, and then we can make loans, and we can make a higher interest. So it's kind of like a subprime type deal. And then you have
mhm,
a lot, then there's like money being made. The companies that are taking the loans like it because they don't have to go through all the underwriting and
right.
all the stuff that they
Mhm,
have to show and financials and stuff to the bank.
which makes
They
it
can just get
riskier.
easy, they can get easy money. And then the investors like it because they put in money and they can get a higher return. So, and I saw a statistic today where there's like just thousands and thousands of these funds, mutual funds and stuff that people can invest in for private credit, and they're getting like great returns and stuff for all these years. But these funds, when the money comes in, they have to push it out and invest it, and lend it out. So you just have just money that was just awash with all these companies, um, all types of companies around America and around the world. And these companies may not be doing good, especially right now when there's a lot of red flags on the economy. They may not be making that great of a return. So the odds are happening that they may not pay that money back, which is going to bleed. My worry is it's going to bleed into other markets. So it could be a catalyst. I think it's something that we really need to watch closely, because when you're dealing with credit, again, credit is a big problem right now because home valuation. There's problems in the home market right now. House values are up. People can't afford them. Um, there's there's an epidemic right now of personal credit, that people are have high levels of credit card debt, more than usual. Like, we're going back to financial crisis days. So there's a lot of things happening that have me worried.
Hmm.
That's one thing we're watching.
And I want to circle back to the bubble analogy, because I'll never forget when I first started, I joined you and started working with you. You used the story of like, or the omen is always when like the elderly ladies come in and start asking about something, or they call and they say, I saw something on TV about this, and should I be doing that? That's part of that FOMO. It takes and there's a funnel, right? So it takes a while. You've got like the early adapters on top of it. And then it trickles down. People start telling each other, there's a lot of that combined with still a lot of cash reserves. So that's all fueling that's why we're seeing new 52-week highs almost every week.
Yeah.
But another phenomenon is that you typically don't see gold in alignment with the stock market and reaching those highs. And
Sure.
gold is reaching new 52-week highs more often than stocks
Yeah.
are. And that's while those of us who have been saying this since the beginning of the year, that was going to go up. And thankfully, we got our
Yeah.
clients prepared for that. But that's concerning as well
It's a
because of
leading
the
indicator.
exactly. It's a leading indicator, and that means that other countries are divesting from America. They're not buying as
Hmm.
many treasuries. They're moving to gold as a more stable uh, value for their economies. And uh, we just keep saying like it's it cannot continue at this rate forever. So, but at the same time, you can't time the market either, because it could go so high up that even when it drops, it might be higher than what it is today. You just can't time it. So that's why you just really always have to stay diversified, and you got to make sure your cash positions are suitable, and you got to make sure that you're looking even closer at the diversity of your investments these days.
Yeah, you telling that story when you first came on, and I told you how, yeah, like whenever everybody's talking about,
Mhm.
little old lady down the block who's never invested in stocks starts calling, I want to invest in this. You're like, okay, that's a red flag whenever everybody wants trying to get in on it. And
Mhm.
it reminded me of a story from this weekend. For our fall break, we took our girls to Houston and went to some museums and stuff. But we went to the Galleria Mall, which is their big mall in Houston. And I got stuck I was crossing with my girls to a store, and I went through that like makeup aisle, and I forgot how like hard sellers they are, like everybody's like hooked. So like so this man was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Oh, hey, I gotta go." He's like, "Hey, can I?" And I saw he was like on this like men's like facial stuff, and I was like, "Oh, I gotta go." He goes, "Hey, fine, you're in finance, right?" And I was like, "Damn it, he got me." So now I had to. So now he like called it. I guess
Were you
something about the dress, like whatever.
hold on, time out. You
He
went
was
for,
just
like, a button-down collar with a puffer vest?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't dressed like a finance bro. I don't know how he got it,
Did you have
but
the
he
little clip from your sunglasses? Those little
yeah, I was wearing, I don't know, like a button-up shirt, untucked. I don't know, but like I had the girls and I was trying to run through there and told him no already like once or twice. And then he said, "You're in finance, right?" And I was like, "Damn it." He was really good. And so I was like, "Yeah, yes, I
Give this
am."
man a promotion.
And then he was like, "Oh, asking me like business tips and stuff. How did you do it? How do you, such a
No.
young age,
And then you
you
were
have
like,
good
"Well,
skin, good
pull up
skin."
a
I'm like,
seat. Pull up a seat and let me tell you."
I was like, "Oh, thank you for saying I have good skin." And yes, I did build my business. Yeah, you got to do this. And he's like, "Oh, he's like, I have some investments." I was like, "Oh, here we go." Um, and I can tell he really wanted to know. He's like, I'm into, I'm into really into crypto and I'm really buying a lot of these AI stocks. I was like, okay, well, that's a bad indicator overall. Like you're saying the same buzzwords and thinking it's going to go up
Mhm,
forever. And I basically gave him some warnings. I hate to burst people's bubbles, because like people think crypto is,
mhm.
something that's isolated from the stock market and stuff. But actually, what we're seeing is crypto is kind of like it's turned into just another like risky stock investment because now when we see the market fall a lot, crypto kind of falls in line with it. So to me, it's just like another stock. So people thinking that it's a big diversifier and some magic thing, that's something that's a little scary as well.
Yeah, I would say
Um,
one of the biggest pitfalls with investing is, and I don't know what the correct term for this. I'm sure there's already some sort of identified policy, but it's the chasing of the sexy investment. You
yeah.
know,
It's the new thing. Like this is different
people
than everything else.
people want the magic bullet. They want to feel like they're the first to get in on it, and the reality is most of the time the boring stuff is what's going to get you the farthest. So
Yeah, exactly. It's the
when you
tortoise
when
and the
you're
hare.
when you're out in the public and out, because I'll never forget when I had a nail technician. She was telling me how she was on Robinhood and she's following like what the politicians are investing in. I was like, oh my gosh, like those are always like indicators that you got to look out for. But
Yeah,
that's
and AI too. AI, I've always been kind of skeptical of AI, but we use it a lot. So we do use it. I'm still a little skeptical about like how much time and money it actually saves because end up spending more because I don't trust it as much. So I end up having to double check my work and now I'm
Mhm,
like, or its work. Now I'm like, am I spending more time now that I use AI?
mhm.
So there is some things that helps me like write and
I like it for
and research and stuff.
yeah,
But it's
outlines, like
yeah,
sometimes like when I'm writing, I kind of like chase, there's like all these stories I want to tell, but I have a hard time like pulling them together for one cohesive message. But it's good for like organization. I will say the article I wrote and published today, I didn't use an ounce of AI for it.
oh wow.
So if it feels a little scattered to you, that's all. It's very human.
Love it. Yeah, so I mean AI is still skeptical again. I think that's kind of causing the bubble right now. So to me, it's way overvalued to where and another thing too, and this is what I told the guy, I was like, yeah, AI may be this productive, but we haven't um the price of these AI stocks have not included the high cost of these data centers, which we're just finding out about because it's raising everybody's electricity bills. Um, and, they're relying on these huge subsidies from states and stuff, and people are not going to
Yes.
like that. It's gonna come back on AI, and it's not priced into the stocks right now. So that
Well,
could
and
be a
they're
big shock.
spending trillions of dollars as if they have no budget. It's just,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's going to
Yeah,
be
because they're getting
interesting.
money, and a lot of it comes down to that private credit stuff. Like
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
much money flying
And
into
government money.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so um but before we close out here in a little bit, I do want to talk about the No Kings rallies. Hope
Mhm.
everybody goes and checks it out tomorrow, Saturday. I know I'll be attending the one here in Lake Charles, my hometown. But if you're in Louisiana, there's 10 cities in Louisiana doing it alone. So please go out
Well,
there for a couple hours.
we'll include a link to find one in your area.
Yeah, and it's easy. It's just nokings.org, nokings.org. And so I wrote a Substack on it a few days ago because I was just like pissed off at how MAGA Speaker Mike Johnson and Steve Scalise call it like the Hate America rally. And I'm like, you sons of whatever, like, how dare you say that? Like, because I've been listening to, and this kind of segues into who I've been talking about on social media a lot lately is Ken Burns. So Ken Burns is one of my favorite creative professionals ever. He's an idol of mine. He has created some of the most breathtaking documentaries I've ever seen in my life. My favorites are the Roosevelts. I mean, we're talking about 8, 9 hours of documentary on Teddy Roosevelt and FDR and Eleanor, um, and the Civil War. And he did country music, he did baseball, he did jazz, like Americana, like in all of its history. He's the king of that. And his newest ones that he's coming out with, that's debuting in November. He's been working on it for like over a decade, like 15 years, he said, is going to be on the American Revolution. And I'm
It's going to
like,
be
"Ah,
so
I can't
good.
wait. It's going to be so good." And it's the perfect time because I've been saying, like, narrative. I'm in the process of writing another Substack on narratives or uh, we're going to need to get out of this Trump moment. Um, I Brian Stevenson is a civil rights icon, and I went and listened to him at the Tulane Book Fair, and he said, like, he was asked, "How do we get out of this?" And he said, it's the stories we tell, because we're up against the MAGA story, and that's very hard to push back against, but we have to. And it reminded me, I was like, how did America get through all these tough times before? We're talking World War II, the Great Depression, um, Jim Crow, civil rights, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War. Like, we've been through these big things before. And I noticed that, like, Abraham Lincoln and Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of them talked about and brought back the original narrative of America's birth. And I think that's what I think we need to do now. Like, there's so many hidden gems. People forgot about why America became America, why we invented a new country. Now, nobody had done it before. Like, it was completely new to have a president and 3 co-equal branches of government. It never happened before. All these democracies we see around the world right now were all inspired by America. And so that's why Ken Burns he's promoting this now. So he's hitting the podcast circuit. He went on Joe Rogan, which, Ken Burns is a big liberal, open, unabashed liberal. And he went on Joe Rogan and just talked, gave
Schooled them.
all of these great quotes. And the whole time Joe Rogan is going, wow, wow, I didn't know that, so go listen to that episode. And he was also on Tim, the Bulwark podcast recently.
I love
And it
Tim.
reminded me to go look, and because they all asked him, like, what would their founding fathers think about this moment? And he said, just the other day, he said, you know what? They predicted Donald Trump. He said that was like almost the entire thing they were worried about the most. They had constant conversations. They had letters that would go on for years, back and forth, to Jefferson, Madison, Franklin, and George Washington. They have so many great quotes talking about how the main thing they want to base the country on is making sure that no one person can seize power in a dictatorship and create tyranny. And so Ken Burns said, they did predict it. So they would not be shocked about what Donald Trump is doing. He said what they would be shocked about is what the legislative branch is doing by abdicating its power as co-equal power of government, what Speaker Mike Johnson, Steve Scalise are doing right now, and all the other Republican congressmen. So to me, it was just so poetic, because these guys who called this the Hate America rally, what is more un-American than just completely upending what our founding fathers, the birth of our nation was created on about the balance of power and keeping a king away from power, and they are the ones creating it. So
They'll
it's a
say
big F
they'll
you to
just
them.
yeah, they'll just say anything to vilify anyone who stands against them. What do you
But
think?
some great quotes. Go check out my Substack. I put a
Yeah,
lot of those quotes in there. Like they are
yeah,
explicit in what they predicted as far as a possible dictator,
I
and
would bet.
description of Donald Trump to a T.
Amazing. And what do you think, real quick? And I'm going to wrap something up. But what do you think is going to happen with the government shutdown? What are you? I've been kind of
Yeah,
like distancing myself from it, but
I think uh, Donald Trump is um, he's going to use this to do as many bad things. You know, he's proverbially like slitting throats and cutting cutting investment illegally. By the way, this is
he's red-wedding
Congress
it.
again. This is Congress sets where the money goes. He's not supposed to take it and put it somewhere else. He's doing that on a daily basis, literally breaking the Constitution on a daily basis. These are severe laws being broken that um, haven't really been broken at this level in American history, and he's doing it now on a daily basis. So I think he's he's on the side of a losing argument. The Democrats are right here that they need to protect these healthcare subsidies because it's mostly red areas and red states that use these the most, especially here in Louisiana. You can't have people's medical insurance premiums going up by hundreds and hundreds of percent. People will be extremely mad. Democrats need to make sure that they own it because if they don't, if they let this uh, shutdown end and just give in to the Republicans, whenever all the premiums go up, the Republicans are going to blame Democrats. That's what they're
Yep.
good at, just putting anything that they do wrong, they blame Democrats, and that's what makes us bad at messaging. So this, I think, needs to be done. I'm glad the Democrats are holding the line. The Republicans have the losing argument. I think Trump will cave. He's really good about like blustering, acting
Sacco,
like he doesn't cave,
Sacco.
and then giving in because this is bad for him, and then just declaring victory anyway. But the damage is done. So,
Hmm.
but I do think it's going to last longer. I think it's going to go pretty hard for a while
Yeah,
longer.
because he doesn't care who
Yeah, he doesn't
suffers.
care.
Right?
Hmm.
And one last mention of something specifically political is this Pentagon trying to make all of the press people sign. Oh, I just hit my knee really hard. Ouch. Making them sign waivers that they can't report on anything unless they have signed off on it, and all but one network opted out. And I'm not shocked to see that, but it's still funny and a little shocking to me just how far the MAGA supporters will go, the mental gymnastics to defend that. Like if you go, like we have a local news Facebook page that reports on all of the news. They think that our local people like to think that our local news station is liberal. They just report on everything. And if it's something that they don't like, they just say, oh, there goes, radical. It's like, it's KPLC.
Radical
Bare,
KPLC.
yeah, I'm like, they're barely afloat. And the way that on that article, that everyone was like, good riddance, good for them. Like they're liars anyway. They've been lying to us. It's like y'all will bend over backwards to defend these fascist, anti-American policies, no matter what it is. They're going to show up and they're going to defend them
Breaking the
and look
First Amendment on a daily
like a
basis.
bunch of idiots. I'm like, y'all are idiots. Like, do you not see? Like, it's just like crazy to me. I'll never get over that of just how much that they will just, the moral flexibility of these people never ceases to amaze me.
I do see a little change. So I do see fewer people acting that way out loud. Okay.
I
But
see
the
more
ones that
people
are,
coming to attack it. I do. Like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So the comments threads are getting better. You know, I do feel a sense of a lot of MAGA voters or Trump voters. Doesn't mean they're fully MAGA, but just Trump voters backing off of that. They're not really
Mm,
talking about it much because, you know, you see this in the Bro podcast and everything. They're all kind of backing
mm,
away from like
mm-hmm.
their support. So you do see less quantity of people being openly MAGA. on social media, but the few that are left are getting way more crazier, I'm
Mhm.
noticing.
Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. Well,
It's
before we
different.
go, I want to announce that we have officially set a date for our upcoming webinar on how to financially prepare for the fall of democracy. It's going to include a lot of the things that we kind of talk about on a regular basis, but just more compact and organized to this webinar. Um, so I'll include a link for you to RSVP that. Right now, we only have a limited amount of space, like 100 people. We've already got about a quarter of that full. So if you want to attend that, or even if you can't attend live, make sure you register and you'll get sent the recording. And we'll have some bonuses for those who show up live. And I just want to leave it with saying this. On a final note of preparation for all this, of like, what can you actually do to prepare yourself and your family? I think, again, people are kind of always looking for like a magic bullet, but one of the most productive and simple thing you can do for yourself right now is organize your money. And when I say that, I mean most people, I would venture to say 95% of people do not know their numbers intimately. Most people have to look up their gross salary, and they certainly don't know their average expenses. I think what happens is most people get their check, they're contributing to the 401k if they can, which is out of sight, out of mind, which is good. But their paycheck's landing in their account. They're spending what's there. If they've got a little bit of emergency funds, a couple thousand, maybe up to 20,000. And when a big purchase comes up or they have a high spending month, they move it to the credit cards. And when the credit card bill gets a little too high, then they pull back on their spending. And then slowly but surely, those emergency funds start getting depleted and you're stuck in this cycle. So the simplest thing you can do is, first of all, know your numbers. What's coming in, what's going out, what's left over, if there are any. Before you can even make any strategic money moves, you've got to know that. And then you've got to prioritize saving, whether it's building back up your cash fund or putting that money to work in the market. You have to automate that, and you have to save first, then spend. And we see that with the 401k. As long as if
Mhm.
that's why the 401ks are so important to
Mhm.
our society and our economy. It's that automatic out of sight um, process that allows us. It's like forced saving. If you can convert that same kind of forced savings into your personal uh, budgeting, that could be a game changer for you. But you can't do that until you know your numbers. So I've created a tool. It's a Notion template to help you get organized. I include like a Google worksheet that you can then take and edit yourself on the most important numbers you need to know, and there's a budgeting spreadsheet in there. And then I provide a bucket strategy tutorial. So you can go and create your own strategy for figuring out how much you need to be saving for the long term, the short term, and the intermediate. And then I've also got some like vision and dreaming uh, I've got some AI prompts to help you figure out what your goals and your dreams are. So it kind of connects them all together. So I'll include that. It's available to go get and access right now. So go check that out. That's something you can do. Like if you want to show up to the webinar like a little more prepared and ready to kind of implement um, some things that we're going to talk about in the webinar, go get this tool, get organized, and show up to the webinar ready to go. So I'll leave it at that
Cool.
and go register. We can't wait to see y'all there. Y'all have a great weekend.
Go to the No Kings Rally
No
near
Kings
you.
Rally. And you know what? Take care of yourself. Like be careful at those protests, of course, and then take care of yourself afterwards too, because that's it's emotional and it takes a lot of mental strength, and capacity. So just, do something for yourself. Go have some joy this weekend. Take care of yourself. Read our latest articles, and y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.